at some point, they're going to have to make a decision. Are we heading in a socialist direction? Or are we heading in a fascist direction? And somebody like Fuentes is all the more ready, willing, and able to take us in a fascist direction. And the people who follow him, they're devoted to him. Now they're censoring the word Epstein. You cannot use the word Epstein on TikTok. That's a level of psychotic behavior that will inevitably break it when it's all said and done, because you can't survive.
When I was little, my dad always taught me when I was a kid, he's like, if you meet someone and they don't like black people, he's like, they don't like Jews either.
Religious conservative base, which has been in the hands of people like Ben Shapiro and a few others for a long time, but they're losing control. It's obvious they're losing control, and they really don't know what to do. So, what do people with money and power who are losing control typically do? They censor the shit out of everybody. That's what they do. About 4% of the population that falls under some form of narcissistic, sociopathic, even psychopathic personality disorder. And the problem with those particular personality disorders in a capitalist system is that they tend to rise to the top.
At some point, everybody, police in this country that are not ICE and military, are going to have to make a decision as to what side they're on. And that is the revolution.
All right. Good day, everyone. We are here with another episode, and we have two very special guests, Jen Perelman, or Perelman. How do I pronounce it, Jen? Because I'm very Dutch in that sense.
Oh, it was cute though. Perlman.
Perelman. Okay, Jen Perelman, Peter Hager. Both of you are of revolutionary change. A very, very interesting channel that I always follow. I always follow your long form show. So we just recently had another guest on, Ryan Christian of The Last American Vagabond, and he also does long form shows, hours long. And I'm one of those guys who really loves long form. I'm kind of sick of all the short attention span content that is on YouTube, and you guys do that too. Long form, very, very good stuff. Um, very glad to have you on. Maybe you can give for our audience a bit of an introduction, who you are, why you guys do have that channel, and etc. etc. Maybe we can start with you, Jen.
So Peter and I met on a congressional campaign down here. Well, I say down here, I'm not there right now, but in South Florida. And we met at the end of a campaign in 2016. And we just stayed in touch. And then we sort of bumped in on social media, I guess. I saw him on with Jordan Sheraton on Status Quo. We started chatting. And then he had this brilliant idea that I should run for Congress against Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Um, and so then we did that. So we ran that campaign in 20 and then took that platform and turned it into our channel and have just been doing this for the past 5 years. I think that was a pretty brief intro, right, Peter?
Yeah, I would say so. Uh, I was always fascinated with politics, American and international politics, from the time I was a kid. And, I watched as so many different machinations happened. I was in college during 9/11, and then obviously the war on terror. And then post that, I saw the whole Obama phenomenon happen. And then immediately after he's elected, everything that he said he was going to do, he did almost the complete opposite, which again only facilitated more and more of this revolutionary moment that kept growing, came out of Occupy Wall Street. And then that summer of 2015 really woke me up with Bernie. I really got into it in a big way, and met a lot of great people, met some interesting people that I would not break bread with. But that's the odyssey of politics in many respects. And one of the persons I did meet was Jen Perlman, and we ended up getting in touch, losing touch, getting back in touch. And it just kind of dawned on me that, you need good people in the arena. If I could have run against Wasserman Schultz, I would have done it if there was any viable path to be effective. And I know that I couldn't have. And so I thought Jen, not just based on demographics, because unfortunately that in America plays a big role in politics. It still does. Not as much as it used to, but it still does. And the fact that I was living down there and I was willing to do what pretty much nobody else was willing to do, which is give up my time and my efforts to help her. A lot of people will encourage people to run for office, but they don't actually put skin in the game to make that difference. Now, obviously, social media has grown leaps and bounds ever since then. And so after the campaign, which we had a pretty good showing, all things considered, and there was a lot of roadblocks, we decided, or at least Jen, I would say definitely was the person who emphasized the need to keep going in a different capacity and that a podcast would work. I came up with the genius name of Generational Change with a J. And so
Right.
we ran, probably
Did
killed us
you
with the
guys know
algorithm.
we were that? Did you guys know we were that before? Okay.
Generational change? No, no, I love it though.
Yeah, so we were generational change with a J up until July.
Yep.
And then we had a brand switch and just switched to revolutionary change. So, but yeah, I mean, and all of our old stuff is still generational change. It's the same channel, but yeah,
Mm.
We have been not shy about speaking truth to power under all circumstances. It's helped us and it's hurt us at the same time. The people that follow our channel are very loyal and great, and they're there every stream. And at the same time, our channel is habitually shadow banned to the point of it's like pathetic. It's like they're
it
daring us to
is.
do it. And
Yeah.
where we have surmised that it started from was, I want to say it was maybe 6, 7 months into the creation of the channel that we partnered up with Katie Halper to do a free Assange-a-thon live stream on our channel. Had a lot of great guests and it was very informative, but we
It didn't go
definitely,
over well.
yeah,
It didn't
we
go
became,
over well with the
we got
powers that
marked.
be.
Definitely got marked. But I realize that, if the reason that you're in this, if the sole reason you're in this is to make money, then you're not the person that I want to break bread with. You can make money doing this, but you have to maintain your integrity. And for a lot of people, it's hard. And then considering this collapsing empire we're living in, it's even harder. So I get it. But at the same time, I love doing this with Jen. We bicker back and forth, but that's natural. We're both Tauruses, so of course we're going to butt heads. And at the same time, she's a good friend, and I guess I have politically married her. So as long as I'm doing a podcast, I have no choice but to work with her. Um,
Yeah. No,
but
we're
that,
stuck. We're
yeah,
so stuck together at this point, like more seriously, because Peter started handling all of our social media and my social media like more than 4 years ago. I have been off of social media. So he handles all this. So if I were to go
Me
do
too.
anything, I he has to come because I don't know how to do any of it. And but apparently now we have an upscrolled account. So I'm excited about that.
and I will also
Yeah,
say, oh, please.
no, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The last thing I was going to say is 3 days after what happened on October 7th, we did a live stream and we went viral. That was probably the first time it really happened because Jen basically made a statement and we went viral on TikTok, which the scary, red Chinese owned TikTok at the time. And she basically said there's going to be 2 million people dead in the desert. Like that's what's coming. And everyone didn't really know how to take that. But it proved to be very prophetic because clearly somebody who comes from that world understands how they maintain their fiefdom and their power structure.
Yeah.
So here we are with a rebrand, and we will continue to fight on the side of justice as we always have. But there's no question that what's happening in Palestine has basically been the hallmark of our channel for the past 2+ years. Because
Yeah.
what happens in Palestine is going to happen to the rest of the world if we don't stop it. And now, of course, as we can see with ICE, they've brought it here to the States. And they're
Yeah.
trained by the same people. So, of
It
course, it
was
happens.
only a matter of time. It was only a matter of time.
Yep.
And that by the
Yeah,
way means
exactly.
and that by the way means for white people, okay? Cuz it's been that here for forever for the not white people. Right? It's just it now it's more now it's mainstream.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I've been saying that on Substack. That's the only social media that I use, but I'm gone of all social media as well. I just can't handle it
No,
psychologically.
they're
And
mean. They're
yeah,
mean. They were mean
they're
to me.
super, yeah, extremely mean, and it's just all it's manipulation. Elon Musk will just he will channel all the views to all that racist crap that he likes, and anti-Palestinian stuff and pro-Zionist stuff. And but I think you said something very interesting there, Peter. I think we in that sense we're a bit similar, Peter and myself, other Peter. We also we also really shifted towards a lot of Palestine content the past 2 years. It's just been a central aspect of our channel. Also, when you see all the interviews that we did, and that's also why we came across you guys and thought, hey, that you two are very interesting guests in that sense. And I also think it's the central issue of our times. I'm always very surprised by some of the channels these days that just act like it doesn't exist anymore. I'm baffled by that stuff. And what you saying that, okay, you're now on Upscrolled, for example, which is a Palestinian run social media platform. I was thinking today, and I wonder what you guys think about that. I think we are now finally at the stage that if you connect yourself to Zionism, whether it's TikTok, whether it's CBS, I think you're finally turning gold into mud or turning gold into crap. I think it's finally really start companies stop making profit, or at least the profit is minimizing when they tie themselves to Zionism. And it took a while, but I think one of the only ways to beat this stuff in a system of capitalism is when it's finally become it loses its ability to make profit when you tie yourself to Zionism, while at the same time, when you see something like Upscrolled, it is actually profitable to become tied to the Palestinian cause. I think we are seeing a kind of shift there. I wonder what you think about that.
I do. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. Then now what we need is we need some sort of similar upscrolled alternative to YouTube, and then I can wipe my hands of Google, right? Like so that would be cool. I think the fact that it's like Australian Palestinian owned Upscrolled, something like that. Is that what it's
Yeah.
um that's just to me a bonus, like that's sort of a perk. The idea that it's going to be non-censored completely, like that's the appeal. The fact that it also happens to be a Palestinian person is definitely a bonus. But we have to start finding alternative um, solutions outside of both electoral politics and just our governments in general. I mean, these people are not going to help us. And I know it's different where you guys are to some extent, but like in this, in the States, it's like they're not going to help us. Nobody's helping us. So we need to help ourselves. And it's the same concept, I think, online. We need more independent type of programs like that. And as somebody who is so tech challenged, I don't know what it takes to create those things or what, like, I have no concept, but I'd love something like a YouTube that wasn't YouTube. How do we get that? You guys are in China. Don't they do innovative, cool stuff there? That's what we
Yeah,
need.
they've got their own internet ecosystem with all the same types of services, like the same types of social media
Right.
apps and websites and whatnot, but just in their own ecosystem. So, like some of their apps, like Little Red Book, it's pretty easy to use that in English, and you can translate everything really easily. So when TikTok was first banned, there was the phenomenon of the TikTok refugees going over to Xiaohongshu, the Little Red Book app, and it was fantastic. It was amazing to see like the interactions going on there when the so many U.S. people went into the Chinese
Right.
social media ecosystem for the first time, and there was this
Yeah.
mutual learning on both sides that was fantastic to watch. But I don't know how easy it would be to use like the Chinese version of YouTube. That I
Well, we
don't
need
know.
something global. We need something
Yeah,
global. We need
yeah.
something that's a global thing that is like this non-censored upscrolled, but for
Yeah, and that is
people
not
in China.
Zionist run. like it's almost impossible to find something that's global, that's not Western slash
Huh?
Zionist run. So I've always said China should make its platforms more accessible to an international audience. But on the other hand, if they do that, then it becomes very difficult to protect their society against the influence of the United States. So I get their dilemma, but the problem is now they've sold off TikTok, at least in the United States, which was a fantastic, originally Chinese platform, and it becomes another Western imperialism Zionist propaganda machine. And I'm so frustrated about that. You know what I
Now it's
mean?
gonna die, and that's what
Yeah,
and
hopefully.
when that first happened, when Larry Ellison bought TikTok, if you go back and look at whatever our show was after that when we talked about it, I said everybody needs to get off of TikTok. I understand people who do it for a living, you're kind of stuck, but if you're not on there for a living, get off of TikTok. It will be worthless. And that was easy for me to say as someone again who's not on social media, but yeah, it's only worth something if people go there.
It's kind of the funniest and best outcome of the available possible outcomes, because
Yes,
basically the other choice was they were just going to shut it down. So
right.
the Chinese company is like, what's the best outcome for us? Well, at least let's get some money for it, and
Exactly.
then let's let them run it into the ground, which is what they're currently doing. Now maybe
Yes.
they'll sure certainly they'll try to calibrate their censorship operation so that when people are sending text messages that include the word Epstein in it, it doesn't get censored. I mean, they'll fix really stupid things like that and still implement their censorship. But hopefully, this is a downward spiral that ends up destroying the app entirely.
Well,
I
they
hope
don't know
so.
what else to do at this point because if you censor the word Zionist based on the context within which the word is being used, that's a level of communist China that people in America perceive as how the government controls you. But then you take it a step further, as friend of the show James Lee pointed out earlier today. Now they're censoring the word Epstein. You cannot use the word Epstein on TikTok. That's a level of psychotic behavior that will inevitably break it when it's all said and done because you can't survive. It's going to, if you're going down that road, then there's pretty much nothing that you will not. And again, you're talking about Zionists here. You're talking
You mean the
about,
name Epstein, period? The whole name Epstein?
can't use it,
Not like as a verb, like I've said he was Epsteined,
can't
not like
use
as
the
a
word.
verb.
No, you can't use it. So
Wow.
that's a, that's also a level of paranoia that is going to inevitably be their downfall because we try to point out constantly, and it's understandable why the Jew hatred has gotten to such an incredibly toxic level at this point. The Zionists are dependent on their survival by making everybody hate Jews. That's the only way they survive. And so,
They need to really cause a division where we're only safe if we go with them.
Yeah,
yeah,
and that's long been a strategy.
Yep.
Jew hatred and hatred for Arabs, both of them. You know.
How do
yeah.
they do that at the same time? Yeah, how do you simultaneously create anti-Jew and Islamophobia bullshit simultaneously?
Well, there's some research on anti Semitism and other forms of prejudice. And a consistent finding has been that people who hate another group on the basis of their group identity tend to be pretty Catholic. They hate all groups that are out groups. So
Right.
maybe they especially hate maybe one, but if you
Right.
hate another ethnicity just because they're that ethnicity, you tend to hate all other ethnicities that
You
are
know,
not your own.
that's really
Peter
funny.
comes
My
from a
dad
very Catholic, conservative, right
Oh, I,
wing
I use
family.
Catholic
So
in the sense of universal,
No,
like
I
not
know.
Catholic. Yeah.
No, I know. Like when I was little, my dad always taught me when I was a kid. He's like, if you meet someone and they don't like black people, he's like, they don't like Jews either. And
Yep.
so it's just funny when you're saying that because I was taught that as a kid for sure.
I think it also
True.
depends. It depends on what part of the United States you come from as well. I think that's a huge part. Uh, I had two young gentlemen on the podcast the other day, and they were, they were impressionable, and I think they have, compassion and they're decent people. But it's obvious that they were brought up
I have
in,
concerns for
you
those
know,
boys. I have
very,
concerns for those boys.
yeah, except, well, very homogenous backgrounds, and they probably never saw a person of color before they entered college. It's one's from North Texas and the other's from North Dakota, so that I think in a lot of ways explains why Christian Zionism to me is going to fall faster than Jewish Zionism, because so much of it is indoctrination centered around the church, whereas so much of Jewish Zionism is based on ethnic dynamics
It's
and
based on money.
money. Well, I
Jewish
always say,
Zionism is based on money.
yeah, and it is a cliche, but it's a true cliche in that the Jewish Zionists provide the money and the Christian Zionists provide the flock. That's where the John Hagees, the Joel Osteens, the Kenneth Copelands, and yes, they're all from the three biggest cities in Texas, but it's the truth that that's where the numbers come from. That's why they fight so hard, to try to keep people in line, and that's why the Charlie Kirk story won't die. No pun intended. It really speaks to that level of control. And this is one of the biggest reasons why I could never be a member of the GOP, because I believe in the separation of church and state. In fact, I think that's one of the most sacred elements of the First Amendment in our Constitution. I don't believe that while there were founding fathers that believed that religion or being a Christian nation was important, I don't agree with that. And most of the most important founding fathers did not subscribe to that ideology either. And yet today, it seems to have dominated so much of political discourse on the political right. But what we're also seeing is this growth of the anti Israel, anti war, and freedom of religion libertarian right movement that is growing
Mm,
exponentially. And there are
mm.
people, like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens in particular, who are at the forefront of, let's be honest, cultivating that crowd. They're not at the head of the class for no particular reason. They clearly know what they're doing. And then you have the other side, which is the religious conservative base, which has been in the hands of people like Ben Shapiro and a few others for a long time, but they're losing control. It's obvious they're losing control, and they really don't know what to do. So, what do people with money and power who are losing control typically do? They censor the shit out of everybody. That's what they do.
Yeah, well said. Even that what you said about Christian Zionists being the flock, you could probably say that also for the Republican Party, because without that mass base of evangelicals,
Yeah.
who do they have? They've got like racists. They've got big business. That's about it.
Well, even then, I don't know if I can 100% agree, because at the end of the day, the Democratic Party became the Republican Party. They ceded so much of that ground because of what the third way Democrats in the 80s and ultimately what led to Clintonism in the 90s ended up becoming. And so the Republicans, to their, to perhaps for their last bastion to the carnival barker that was Donald Trump, is that they've always appealed to non-college educated working class Americans. The country is falling apart economically and politically. So unless you're selling some type of a revolutionary change, the two-party system is collapsing under its own weight. And you're seeing right now why the Democrats are even worse, because the reason they're acting the way they're acting is because this is how they've always acted. They have always ceded as much ground as possible to the craziest elements of the GOP, hoping that people will get so sick of them that because they have no other choice, they're going to come back to the Democrats. I'm telling you, I don't know how much longer that's going to work. And considering how the
Mm.
Democrats in particular are so devoid of any real leadership, I don't know how this is going to really unfold. I mean, the leader of the Democratic Party right now, bar none, is Zoran Mamdani. Like, he is if you want like a true leader who happens to be on the left, he's the only one you got, and he can't run for president. So you're kind of stuck right now. But he is proving in his early stages as mayor that if you think that people in positions of power can't get shit done if they really want to, they can get things done. Period.
I so
But
want
they're
to
good at
believe that. I love that. That's music to my ears. I want to just follow up with that. Can you trace out a possible future whereby the revolution that, it's been said that the US is in a pre-revolutionary period right now. What I worry about, and probably you guys and all of us worry about, is that that revolutionary period gets taken advantage of, as it has in the past, in past crises of capitalism, by fascists. And there's certainly plenty of evidence for that. We can trace out a possible future where that happens real easy. I have a little more difficulty tracing out the possible future where, leftists take power and take state power. But I'm also seeing what a little bit of what you guys are seeing. You're seeing it right there on the ground. Libs, normies are getting really pissed off. How can you trace out a possible future where all these people that are not political junkies, that don't spend hours a day learning about politics, but it's now become intrusive in their lives, and they're seeing this shocking stuff, and they're starting to get politicized, the genocide, and then the cops killing people in the protests, the ICE, etc. Can you trace out a possible future where the left actually takes advantage of this pre-revolutionary situation, so that people can get a sense of how they can contribute to that?
And
Okay,
Peter
so I
doesn't mean
can
libs, eh? Peter means left, not
left.
liberals.
No, no,
No, no,
no.
no. I mean libs. I mean libs. Like libs are starting to get
Oh,
politicized.
okay. Okay, so they're always going to be, as far as I'm concerned, like a few years behind us, right? Like maybe they'll eventually catch up to where we are. So I can sort of give you an idea of like where I see this going in as most optimistic terms as possible, right? Because
Mm.
this what is happening is the implosion of American empire, right? It's happening economically, and then it will also happen politically in the duopoly, and all of that stuff is kind of coming crashing all down. Now how long that takes, I don't know. I mean, I knew Trump would facilitate the revolution, but it sort of seems like it's on hyperdrive right now. um, I don't think what we're going to see in terms of leftist change is going to be seen in our politics, in our electoral politics. I don't think that that's something that's going to happen. I think the Democrats are going to die. I think the Republicans are going to splinter between the the Zios and non-Zios, or the MAGAs and the America
America
First
first.
now, whatever. Yeah, I mean, whatever that looks like. But the actual left is only going to have power outside of that. But I think that it's going to get worse and more violent and uglier before it gets better. I think that it's going to also happen along with the de-dollarization of the planet. I think as the sort of dollar being the global currency, American hegemony coming to an end, I think you'll simultaneously see the end. Well, you'll see the end of the Zio state when we're no longer, king shit. But that is happening simultaneously with this over crackdown of stormtroopers and what's going on. And it's been coming with cop cities for a while. Like this has all been coming. And so the revolution, what we're seeing in Minneapolis, like the actual revolution, isn't going to be electoral. But I think where there might be value in the electoral people like Mamdani, if he does stay true and honorable and have integrity and like all of those things, and maybe people like Anthony Aguilar and Greg Stoker, who, if they could get in there, like this is where that could come from. When there is the possibility of rebuilding something, there are going to need to be people in positions to facilitate that. So that's the only real benefit I see now in terms of the inside strategy, because it's not going to help. It's not going to fix what we're dealing with. That we are a runaway train. So we have to get to that part. And I think it's going to be scary for a while for people. That's the reality. And
Yeah,
I think
Melinda.
that the left, where we will be, where people like me will be, is on the outside of that system, making smaller, more sustainable communities, doing things like permaculture and just trying to live as and degrowth. Degrowth, I think, is a like for me a key strategy, and that's where I think leftists will go. And eventually, when there's no more power and the dollar doesn't buy shit anymore, the libs will have to make their way over there because there won't be any other options. So that's sort of where I see it.
Yeah, I have a very hard time working. I mean, affluent liberals to me are the worst class of politicos out there, as far as I'm concerned, because they're completely irrational and emotionally driven in what they get themselves involved in, and they never want to cede position, because everything is a class war in the United States. No matter how many different ways they try to disguise it as something other than that, it's clear that that's a main driving force behind why so many things never get done. Um, there's been no movement, true movement in the United States, quite like Bernie's movement in 2015 and 2016. It was real, and it was all based on class almost universally. And it was obvious that they needed to stop him. Wasserman Schultz led the way, but there were so many people that saw this as well. If we have somebody who's president of the United States who doesn't see the need to have thousands upon thousands of consultants working in politics because they don't provide anything of tangible benefit, we have to stop this because that's what American politics is about. American politics is about the spectacle, it's about the show. It's not about what's going on underneath the surface. You guys obviously have seen what's been going on in Beijing, particularly in Shanghai, with the trading of silver and gold. This is not something that gets talked about in terms of daily political discussion. Anybody who follows finance closely in the United States is aware of it, but de dollarization is not something that is a primary discussion in the US. In fact, other than me doing my own personal research, I haven't heard anything in terms of national discussion regarding the BRICS currency that is coming in less than 2 years. And when that happens, I mean, the United States is in big trouble. Now, do I think the US dollar will cease to have value? No, because America is still the number one consumer nation in the world. So there will always be a reason to have it because you'll have other nations, particularly led by China, that knows that Americans will buy their stuff. So there will always be some element of that. But in terms of the United States being the world hegemon in the near future, I think it's going away. Like it really is. And how people prepare for that, I don't know. So to think that you can vote your way out of this, it's not possible. How could you? But there's still way too many people of comfort that think that you can, and they're in for a
because they're
very rude awakening.
comfortable, and
Yeah,
that's why
that's
they,
it.
yeah.
That's it. And there are people of comfort that are aware, but they're very few of them are willing to step outside the echo chamber. And the more scary part is that there's a lot of people in the echo chamber who know what's coming, and they're too afraid to say anything.
Yeah, well, to be very honest, I hope you are right, Peter. We have what I always say in the anti-imperialist sphere. We have these two schools of thought. You have one school of thought that says American empire is in decline, and that it will collapse relatively soon. Others say, well, actually, U.S. empire seems to be reviving. I am more of the school of thought lately, and I'm very much convinced by journalists like Vanessa Beeley and Fiorella Isabel, who say that we need to focus more on a transnational capitalist elite that is doing very well, and the collapse will be more among the society itself. So you will see a collapse indeed of the American society, while those at the top, the Peter Thiels, Alex Karps, will be just fine. But that is of course a very interesting, but a different discussion. I wanted to get back to what you just said about liberals and but also conservatives and the way people react right now and what is going on. Do you guys agree that what is happening now with ICE shooting people on the streets, white woman, white man, which is of course not worse than what has happened before with police violence, but surprising to a lot of people who were not used to this stuff? Um, would you agree that ICE is a kind of empire coming home? We have seen a genocide going on for 2 years. People have not been able to stop it. Inevitably, it would be coming home. And we see that now with ICE. It's the Gaza method coming home. That's question number one. Question number two is it, do you also think there has been a very much of a blindness for many, many decades among the, you could say, the white majority population, especially in the United States, for the warnings that have come from people, let's say people of color, Black Americans, who have been saying this stuff has been happening to us already for many, many decades. You didn't want to listen. Now, you guys, and I like that a lot. You guys have a super PAC. You guys support somebody like Butch Ware. Butch Ware is somebody who actually often focuses on that
Yeah.
white violence on black Americans, and that empire has always been like this. You just didn't look. you weren't looking. How do you guys see that? That whole ICE situation, Gaza method, the warnings that have already come from Black Americans, for example, etc., etc. Yeah,
Okay.
maybe you have something to say, Jen.
Yeah, so I've been saying this forever. I actually find the whole entity to be unconstitutional. I think that its existence is unconstitutional. Yet we've had four different, I think, administrations, two Republican, two Democrat, that have been funding it since its existence, right? Like, so ICE is something that came about after 9/11, and it was always meant to be more than just about immigration, right? Like, it was always meant to be more about immigration, and that was just the excuse. It's still the excuse. That's still what they're using it to get people on their side, is we have to get rid of the illegals, we have to get rid of all these illegals. But that's not what it's just about. That's where they're starting, but it was always bigger than that. And it isn't even just ICE. I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with the cop cities that have been sprouting up here. I think there's like 100 of them now that are around the country. Our municipal police departments have been so over militarized since 9/11. All of the arms and everything from the military industrial complex that is made to kill people anywhere has been being used here in municipal law enforcement through all of these different subsidy, things that they've put in place so that they can get paid for equipment that wasn't necessarily used for what it was intended for, right? So, like, this whole militarization is not just ICE, but we know they're trained by the IOF. We know that that has always been a source for law enforcement, in terms of testing ground. I don't know if you're familiar with Anthony Lowenstein's book, The Palestine Laboratory. It's quite good. It really talks about how that has always been planned as the testing ground, whether it's for chemical stuff that they do, other types of ammunition, whatever it is. So, no, I'm not surprised at all. And I think that this is we are really seeing the empire clamping down in its death throes on any form of resistance. But they're also building camps. So it isn't just going to be about the immigrants at some point. It's going to be about the unhoused people, because now that can be illegal. And it's going to start to be political dissidents and play people that live in blue states whose governors our president doesn't like. And those are the kinds of things. But they're just out there now collecting bodies for whatever, for, I don't know, fodder. What do
And
you?
it's a reflection of the end of capitalism, because the wealth and the power is concentrated into too few hands. And then you look at somebody like Alex Karp, who is a full blown psychopath. It's just obvious. The guy gets off on hurting people. Who
I
knows?
also think he's always high, and I don't mean high
And
like
do
me high.
so,
I mean
sorry
like out.
Yeah.
sorry for interrupting, but do you guys know his history? By the way, Alex Karp, the guy comes from an activist family with an
Yeah,
African American mother, if I'm not mistaken,
that's
and he
correct.
was taken to protests against police brutality and anti-black racism.
It has
Kind of
Seriously,
been
he
like
comes from this.
the male Kristen Cinema.
Well, it's been proven that from psychological studies that there's probably about 4% of the population that falls under some form of narcissistic, sociopathic, even psychopathic personality disorder. And the problem with those particular personality disorders in a capitalist system is that they tend to rise to the top, because they have no empathy. And when you remove that element from, again, I've been in Wasserman Schultz's presence, and I even remember a time when she was asked, "Why do so many people hate you?" And her response was, "Because they don't know any better." That's a person who just truly thinks that, no, I know better. I know I'm better. I know better than everybody else. And that is a common behavior. Listen, I totally understand what's going on. I am the smartest guy. I'm the best guy. And that's narcissistic personality disorder. And no one around him ever tells him, well, you might not be right about, I'm totally right
No,
about everything. It
no,
just
they're
can't happen.
morons. He's walking around naked and they're just carrying his clothes.
Yeah.
But they're useless. But the people that do ICE, like those thugs that are doing that, those are people that couldn't make it in any other sort of actual masculine capacity in any way, and are very small people. They are. Those are very small people. There's no good guys in that.
To me,
So they're all psychos.
And to me, the most guilty, which is not getting talked about enough, and we've pointed it out on the channel, I'm going to keep pointing it out. The person who needs to be brought up on murder charges in what just happened with Alex Preeti is the guy who started it. He shoved that woman to the ground and then took that can of mace or pepper spray and proceeded to spray it into Alex's face for a good 10, 15 seconds. And if you're putting something like that in someone's face for that length of time, you could put them into such a state of delirium that they could end up getting killed. And so he is not getting talked about. It's only the person that they're talking about that fired the weapon. But notice how the guy who did that, he was not of a very tall stature. So that to me is also a very common sign that you see with a lot of these guys. And look, you're seeing a lot of members of law enforcement that are now coming out saying, yeah, don't associate us with these guys because this is totally different. And at the end of the day, I don't think Trump really has anything to do with this. I think that there is a collection of oligarchic psychopaths, probably all Zionists, to be honest, that are just essentially, trying to play God right now. They're also very scared, whether they admit it or not, that they know that their ideology is losing control, that people don't want anything to do with it. We've had two surviving members, there's not many left, of the USS Liberty, who came on, and one of them in real time basically called out Shapiro, who was on stage at that AmFest Turning Point USA event, lying about what Israel's involvement really was. You can see it in real time that all they have are lies. They have lies through money and power manipulation. And unfortunately, right now, there's a lot of people who are willing to go along with it, that have their hands out. You see the scum suckers on the left. I wouldn't even say the left, just the Democratic side, like the Neera Tandons of the world. And then you
That's
see
not
it
the
on
one.
the yeah, and then you see it on the right. It was somebody like Tim Pool, who Jen's been on his podcast. He came out today saying, I voted for this. I voted for the ICE. I'm like, dude, do you want to make it that obvious that you're getting paid off?
Like in a good way, he was like proud of that. Like these
Yeah,
this
yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
the
that
ice
And
thing
about
is
the
is a problem.
about that psychopathy, just quickly, Peter, then I hand it to you. You guys will like my the articles that I write on our Substack. I actually recently published two articles. One, it was called "We Elevated Psychopathy to Culture," and we call it capitalism. And the other latest piece is called "Trickle Down Psychopathy." We're not in trickle down economics, but we're in trickle down psychopathy. And you really see it happening now with you have all these horrible things like Epstein Island and this stuff, and the way our elites are dealing with society. This stuff trickles down, and you now have these ICE agents running after underage little girls, and they're sexually abusing these kids in these detention centers, and you're surprised when all your leaders, all your political leaders are can be found on pedophile islands. You know what I mean? I mean, it's everything that culture trickles down. And like you said, in capitalism, if you're a psychopath, you're gonna rise to the top because you need to be able to be a shark, to eat others, to rise to the top. So you get that psychopathy, and it's being shown on television. You have 2 years of unending abuse and murder and rape in Palestine. I mean, it's bound to happen that things in society are collapsing, like we're seeing right now. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Well,
Go ahead, Peter.
that brings us kind of back to that question I asked you earlier about the possible future. It seemed to me like in the optimistic possible future you laid out, you would have leftists kind of forming groups, maybe mutual aid organizations in local areas, but not capturing state power. So state power would most likely then be captured by the far right, ultra right, doing what normally happens in a crisis of capitalism, like a deep, deep crisis, which we're very close to, because all you need to happen is the AI bubble popping, and that can feed right into some of the dynamics Peter was talking about with dethroning dollar hegemony. But you would most likely then have state power captured by the far right. So any like little leftist mutual aid group could just be wiped out by the
Yeah.
militias of the type of people you guys are talking about, the Napoleon complex having psychopaths who don't have any power, masculinity in their own lives, and they feel like they need to, be armed by the state to go kill enemies of the state, which in this case would be the small group of disorganized leftists that are doing great work locally, but they're not trying to capture state power and they don't have a disciplined mass organization. So what I'm wondering is, we're in this time, it seems to me, and I'm far away from the US, so I might be my finger is not on the pulse, but it seems to me like you've got this mass disillusionment of normies, people that don't really know that much about politics. And, I completely forgive them, because the way that politics is presented in the mass media is such that people would be rational to say, this is horseshit, I'm not paying attention. But with the crazy stuff that's been happening over the past few years, it seems like you've got this mass disillusionment and interest in politics, because now politics is really kind of intruding into people's lives, first through the genocide, now through ICE. Couldn't this moment be the moment where we as the left try to actually enter an organization, take one over, like the DSA or PSL or whatever, and try to make it a mass party, organized and disciplined, with the goal of capturing state power? Not in the near term, obviously, we're way too weak and disorganized for that, but have that as our medium term goal at least. Because it seems to me like there is a lot of also disillusionment on the left about electoral politics. And to that, I say I completely agree with you. Like, I really do agree with you about how difficult it would be and how low the chances are. But there's only two ways to capture state power: ballot or bullets. And bullets ain't happening. Or unless you're doing this all offline, because we couldn't talk about it online at all. You couldn't talk about it offline when you have a phone around. You couldn't talk about it offline except if you're like in the middle of the forest or the ocean. That's the extent of the surveillance state. So the bullet option, unless you've got a massive network in the army or the U.S. military, then yeah, sure, go for that option. But I don't see any evidence of that. So I think this is all just a bunch of disappointed people, saying, God damn it, we tried the ballot box and we failed. And I just feel so disillusioned. I'm just going to say, the ballot box is useless. Well, fine, then fucking try to organize a violent revolution. But I don't think that's going to work. So going back to the ballot, do you see any possibility of, maybe not next year, although it seems like next year would be the perfect time to organize a mass effort to get these crooks out of office as much as possible? And then the next thing would be, in a disciplined, organized fashion, provide support for the people we did get elected, so that they don't turn into AOCs who they face the only organized pressure in the system, which is not the left. And so they end up bending and breaking. So do you think that there's some hope for that? Like, is there a possible future where leftists like make a major push for this next midterm election to kind of capture this mass normie disillusionment? Or do I have my fingers so far off the pulse of the US that I'm just talking nonsense?
Yeah, I don't see that happening. And when you talk about, people being in smaller sustainable communities, I never said anything about those not being armed, and I never said anything about us on the left not having military people as well, because not everybody who is in the military will continue to maintain that mindset, and we see people changing more and more that are getting out of it. But so at some point, everybody, police in this country that are not ICE and military, are going to have to make a decision as to what side they're on. And that is the revolution. And it isn't something that's going to happen at having anything to do with midterms. And unfortunately, while I would love to say, let's have a nonviolent revolution, I mean, come on, you guys are professors. When has that happened? When has that happened? That's not how this is going to work. Our electoral process, this country, the tentacles of corruption are not like you, it's like whack a mole. There's no fixing this. You can't fix it. Okay. So here's the cake analogy, right? So let's say you bake a cake and you put it all together and you put all your ingredients in, and then it comes out of the oven. You can't take the gluten out of that cake, right? Like, that's not going to work. You can't say, oh, I want this to now be gluten free. How can I fix that? That's what we're dealing with. This can't be fixed. Policing can't be reformed. This government cannot be repaired and fixed. I don't know what it does look like, but I know that that's not it.
There's a lot of
It's
people.
never going to happen.
There's a lot of people
Mhm.
standing around waiting for the straw to snap because this system, I've been saying for the longest time, there were many reasons why I felt that Wasserman Schultz needed to be properly challenged. She was not properly challenged in 2016. The person who ran against her was an even bigger Zionist than she was. That was something that we didn't really figure out until after the fact. But when she was properly challenged, one of the things that I just could not stop thinking about is the fact that she deliberately gets away with breaking federal law every day by doing insider trading, and they do it out in the public. They do it out in the public. They have a stock tracker for Pelosi. You have Dan Crenshaw who talks about it and pretends like he wasn't doing it. While I appreciated some of the sentiments of Marjorie Taylor Greene before she left, she was doing insider trading. Now she'll claim that it was her money manager who was doing it, just like Ro Khanna says it's my wife who's doing it. They're all doing it. And
You
then you
can't
get
fix
some,
this.
yeah, you get somebody like Alex elected in there, and then she has the audacity to make a statement the other day talking about, I am supporting this woman for Congress. By the way, she's taken 50,000 from APAC this election cycle. It's like they they don't want the resistance because I'm telling you, and this is part of the reason why I think the libertarian movement is the only way out of this, because there are too many people on the left in particular who have never tasted success in their life, and the second they taste it, they'll do anything to keep it. And she's a prime example of that. I don't think people even can comprehend the level of not just power but privilege that comes with being a federally elected representative, from the insider stock tips to the gold plated universal health care plan that they say we can't afford, uh, having travel perks to the tune of six figures every single year, to when Mr. Impressionable, who claims he got punched in the face over the weekend, Maxwell Frost, as soon as he gets elected into Congress, takes a five-figure trip to East Asia, into Japan and Korea. And let me assure you, when they go on these trips, these are five-star trips. They get the best food, they get the best hospitality, they get the best sights to see. And it's very easy for people who cannot make it in the free market to be convinced, hey, play your cards right. You could do this every year. In fact, you could do it a few times a year. Now, if you decide to start saying certain things about certain people in certain positions, you might not be at the head of the line to get those trips. In fact, those trips might disappear. In fact, that mayor that's over in that town over there that didn't really vote very strongly for you? Yeah, they might get a couple of $1 million in a primary campaign against you. So, you might want to think about the cards you're playing. Play them right, you're in good shape. Play them wrong, you might be on your way out. And so that's the dirty secret about politics. They can really suck you in. And I've seen it. I've seen it with good people. I've seen it with bad people. And
AOC is the great example,
yeah,
man. I mean, it's just horrible to see how that woman has fallen. That's
She was
unbelievable.
always a fiction. Okay, so she was basically like the Spice Girls anyway. All right, she was always like contrived by the Justice Dems, or whether it was Kyle Klinsky, Cenk Uygur. I mean, Zaina's the one who put her bio together. Like she's a fiction,
and not
And
only that,
I
but remember, Jen, when was the dead giveaway? Everybody is slow to the party with this stuff, but I knew AOC was a
when
farce.
she didn't come meet us
Yeah,
in November.
this was November of 2019. So
So she had only
yeah,
been there for
a
less than a
year,
year.
a year.
Not even,
Yeah,
yeah.
not even. So she's there. And this was an event in DC that was put on by Brand New Congress. And look, we had a room
So all
built.
the slate people were there. So like
Yeah.
I was there. All those different Cory Bush, Jamal Bowman, like we were all in DC for this
Uh-huh.
brand new Congress summit in the fall of 2019. So Alex has just was sworn in January,
And
right?
to me, and listen, I of course am somewhat biased, but to me, there were three candidates in that room that really stood
This
out.
is you're getting off topic.
Point is, you had Jen, you had Betsy Sweet, and you had Cory Bush. I knew that there were legitimate candidates running for office that could be federal legislators. Like they were capable of being on Capitol Hill. You would think somebody like Alex, who had the full weight of this organization that helped her get elected into Congress,
She
would
would want to
stop
come meet some
by
of us.
for 5 minutes during the
And by the
lunch
way,
break.
But and by the way, she was still going to be running on that slate as the
Mhm.
incumbent. So
Correct.
she was still technically one of our slate mates. And yet she couldn't be bothered. And she was in DC. It wasn't like she was in New York at the time or whatever. She was in DC when we were there. And she could not be bothered over the weekend to stop by and meet a whole bunch of people. She was already better than that.
And
We were
that's
now
why
just,
and that's why Paula Jean Swearigan put out a post the other day that I helped boost, where she's like, "Don't think we're ever going to forget how you pulled up the ladder the second you got on the rung." You know that,
yeah.
and always remind people and remind them because Alex has big plans. She's got very big
And I
plans.
don't think she's going anywhere. I really don't. I don't think Alex is going
Well,
anywhere.
if you see very old videos of Hillary Clinton when she just started as a politician, she sounded like AOC. She sounded like AOC, and
So
she
did
turned into one
Pelosi.
of the most horrible imperialists.
So did Pelosi. So the Dianne Feinstein was a progressive with Harvey Milk when she first got started. But eventually, you have to make a choice. You either trust your ability to fight through the establishment, regardless of the consequences, or you take the easy path. The easy path means you shut up and do what you're told. And
Wait,
that's
can
what
we
they
go
do.
back
Yeah,
to
and
Maxwell
that
Frost getting punched in the face for a second? What
Yeah.
happened there?
So apparently he was at some event, Sundance. He went to Sundance. He went, yeah, because this is what,
He
federal
was at
legislators.
Sundance Film Festival and got punched in the face?
Yeah. So this is,
That's
well,
in Park
just
City.
Yeah. So just the fact that you're a federal legislator from Florida and you feel the need to go to Sundance during session, but that's a whole other story. Again, like I said, it's the life.
They're all about the life.
The
They're
life is
about
very
the life.
important. Well, that's why he was at Coachella. Again, nice kid. I've got, we've talked on the phone, we've texted. Again, I
What are you
have,
talking about? We met him in person when
yeah,
he was down at Grandpa or whatever, Pappy's,
but
whatever the
I
fuck.
am, but I'm not a person who's concerned about whether or not I maintain these relationships with people because I have to make them look good. Bullshit. Either you
Oh,
can
screw
speak if
Maxwell.
you can't tell your friends that they suck, then who can you tell? You're supposed to be able to say that. And so his
Yeah.
claim is that some drunkard Trumper came up to him at Sundance, punched him in the face, and said, "We're going to deport you out of this country." Now, is it possible that that happened? Like, yeah, maybe.
That
But
sounds highly unlikely to me. That sounds highly unlikely to me that that's the actual story. So I'm just saying
well,
that's
whatever
weird.
whatever the case in that matter, like going back to what the point Peter was making earlier about the importance of volunteering. All of that pressure that you guys are describing that are put on people who are trying to enter politics, that can happen because of money. And money, what does it buy? It buys labor hours. It buys intelligent, well-educated people to work 996 or at least 9 to 5, uh, completely on achieving certain goals that go exactly opposite our goals. We don't have that money to pay people to work 9 to 5 or 996 on accomplishing their goals. But if we do have people who can volunteer, now that's another question. Like if you're working 9 to 5 or worse just to make enough money to survive, obviously you're not going to be able to do very much. Maybe you can do a little bit on your free time. But what we really need are full-time workers who can do the work without getting paid because, again, we don't have money. So if there are any people out there who are feeling useless, but they got an inheritance, the millennial generation is about to start getting inheritances from their parents. So, the boomer massive wealth hoard might actually start trickling down a little bit.
Well,
don't
good.
hold
Can
your
you
breath on
forward
that
them
one,
to our
Peter.
PAC? Can
Really?
you forward them? Can you forward that money to our PAC? Because
Yeah, really.
our PAC is a super PAC. We could take all sorts of money. We could take unlimited money. We could take. It's great.
So I'll share
Yeah,
the
yeah.
story. So I got a text message back this morning from John Shu, who I think ran. I don't know if it was DSA or some organization at my alma mater, Rutgers University, and he is running for Congress in the Democratic primary in District 6 of New Jersey against the dawn of New Jersey politics, Frank Pallone. Frank
Ugh,
Pallone I even joked with John, said,
no.
"You do realize that Frank Pallone has been in federally elected office longer than some of Rutgers students' parents have been alive." He's been in federally elected office since 1988. And
That's
again,
when I graduated from high school.
hmm,
That's my graduation year.
I thought that's
What
when
have
you were
you
born.
done, Jen? Could you match that record in federal office?
Why would you want to be in federal office for 40 years? I don't understand that. You would think,
Have you seen his stock portfolio?
His wife is a great stock picker.
oh, I'm
Are
sure.
you? I'm sure you really don't know why. You don't know why somebody would want to stay in a cushy lifestyle where everything is given to them, people suck up to them, they get every bonus, every perk, every privilege, and they don't even really have to do anything. You don't understand why somebody would want that job. I
That's
can't think of an easier job.
and that's the point.
Yeah.
It's like what was it designed for? And we lost our way a very long time ago, but in the end, political corruption just simply knows no bounds. And John asked me, he just texted me, he said, "Do you have any advice?" And I proceeded to basically outline for him what he should do. Like, this is, if you, I basically told him, I said, first and foremost, Rutgers University is that's where you begin. You start right there. You build your ground game. You build your base of support. There, Rutgers is a very activist-driven, higher learning institution. There are tens of thousands of students that go there. If you play it right, you could end up getting hundreds of volunteers that will be interested in helping you facilitate this. Let's also keep in mind that Rutgers also has a major commuter student base. So, by that measure, going into places like Edison and Woodbridge and Sayreville and whatnot, there are ways where do you need money? Yes. But could you build a movement? One of the reasons you couldn't build a movement in the district that Jen ran in is A, it's old, B, it's wealthy, C, they're all gated, and D, it's very, very hot in the summertime to have to be out there knocking doors and getting people
Yeah.
involved. And then, of course, Wasserman Schultz is unbelievably corrupt, and she's got an endless amount of people under her fingernails. Now, one of the things that we did not have in this congressional district was a major university like Florida Atlantic or the University of Miami. We didn't have
That's true.
something like that.
That's
But
true.
he does. In fact, he's got two. He's got Rutgers and he's got Monmouth University. Now, even though Monmouth is a private liberal arts college, you still got activist students there, and you have activist students that come from money. So perhaps you could connect with people that are able to do some fundraising for you. But there are ways to do this.
There's ways to do it, but on a very small scale. That's the truth.
That's true.
Mm.
That's
It's
the
not
truth.
easy.
It works for a congressional seat. It works for a mayor's seat. I have not seen it work for a statewide race yet.
No.
So when you talk about anything at the national level, it's just very like far fetched at this
Now I
point.
will say. Now I will say. Do I think that Graham Plattner has a shot to pull that off in Maine? Yeah, I do, because Maine's one of those states. It's almost like the perfect storm, which is why we're backing Shama Sawant with our super PAC against Adam Smith. You've got a person who was the most recognized, probably in the entire country, member of city council that was in Seattle. She's going up against an incumbent who's been there for over 30 years. He is completely inept. He's completely owned by not just APAC, the Israel lobby, but Wall Street as well. She's really good, and we're going to do some things to help create more visibility for her campaign. That's the type of race, and that's the type of representative who is running as an independent. That if she's able to win, she is going to be a real movement leader in this country at a time where it's desperately needed. You only need a
Yeah.
few. You don't need a shitload. With all due
Yeah.
respect, Rashida, Ilhan, AOC, they're not real movement leaders. They're
They're
just
not
not.
revolutionaries, they're Democrats. And at
They're
the
not.
end of the
Yeah.
day, if somebody like Shama gets in there, she would be the very first and self-proclaimed revolutionary socialist, not democratic socialist, which is the way that they tampered down the word socialism to make it palatable
Yeah.
to the capitalists. But Shama would be the first like openly proud revolutionary socialist,
Yeah.
and I think that would be a big deal.
And I
I,
And I
hope,
I
think
so love it
formidable.
that you guys. I so love it that you guys mentioned Kshama Sawant. We one of the best, or one of the best. They're all very good. I don't want to insult anyone who has been on, but a very great talk we had with Kshama Sawant on this channel. And you're absolutely right. We almost forget about that because people like Kshama don't get that kind of media attention. But she is one of the few very highly successful leftist politicians who
Yep.
actually beat the capitalist class.
Yep.
I mean, she is an example of that it is possible, but you must be such an inherently uncorruptible person like Shama. I mean, you just need you one sensitivity to being bought off and you're done. You can't win anymore. And Kashama is one of those few real socialist people. You cannot buy her. She really she's an activist, and she takes that activism into her politics. A very fascinating woman. And you're absolutely right. And I'm very glad also that you guys support somebody like Kshama Sawant,
Yeah, so
and
people
also
donate to our pack, Revolutionary Change Pack. I don't know how, your audience, but our first big project is starting in August is did you look at that email we got from them, by the way, Peter? My Peter. Um uh it's like a collection of 4 digital billboards in her district that we would use basically to consistently be going after Adam Smith. So that's the beauty of the pack, is to go to the ugly place so that she doesn't have to. And yet it's important. It is. It's gross, but this is just where we're at. So
and
our
that's,
project is to raise money. We're trying to get, it's $15,000 for us to do. I think it was like 90 days from, it's from August to when the election is, to do
yes.
4 billboards, or yeah.
Mhm.
So that's what we're raising money for. So guys, if you want to help out Shama Sawant, we're gonna do it, and we're gonna have fun calling out a total piece of crap in the meantime. So
And
it'll be
that's
glorious.
also and that's also something, Kareem, that I'm sure you've noticed living in other parts of the world that I hope becomes, and I do think it's shifting here in the United States. I do, because it's obvious that it's strictly based on money. We can never have a breath of fresh air away from electoral politics. And it had been that way, I would say, for at least a good 10, 15 years, where you never took off. Once one election cycle's over, I mean, remember, the second that the 2022 midterms were over, Trump announced that he was running again. It's like you don't have any opportunity to breathe. And to me, that's one of the great sins of politics. The fact of the matter is, if you keep your name active in the community, you really only need to start spending money when there's about 3 months left before election day. That's when
If
you
you're
really
a
start.
known person, if
Yeah.
you're, yeah, like if you have certain amount of name recognition, yeah.
Even if you don't, if you know how to use social media and you know how to create brand awareness, you don't really have to start pumping the money in until you're about 2 months away from when early voting begins, because that's when people really start to pay attention.
Correct.
Sometimes you can oversaturate it and be involved and spend way too much. And I think a prime example of that was Nina Turner when she ran for Congress. They spent all that money when it all that she should have been doing, because she had name ID. But of course, this is the problem in politics, especially left politics, is that the people who claim to really be in it for the movement are really in it for the money. And so ultimately, what she ended up doing, which was her sin, and that cross to bear that she'll always have to live with, and I love her. I love her to death. She's a friend, personal friend. She made the mistake of allowing people like Jeff Weaver to come in there and run the operation so they could all get their big fat effing paychecks. But in reality, she needed to hoard that cash because it was an August special election and not start spending it really in earnest until May or June. And at that point, there's no way that Chantel Brown would have been able to beat her, because her game would have been sufficient enough where she would have gotten the vote out to win. And
And they
that's the
did
thing about
not spend it
politics.
on the ground game. They
No,
did not spend
no,
their money on the ground game.
no.
And that was a big, I mean, that was a big problem.
You
I
need
mean, like
three
there's
things
just,
you need three things in politics. You need to have you need to have a social game, social media, comms. You need to have a ground game, and you need to have a great strategist who oversees the campaign. and understands what meetings you need to go to, what meetings you don't need to go to, which alliances you need to form. Again, it's not as complicated as people think it is, but unfortunately, people don't know how to coalesce. That's one of the
I think
hardest
it's
lessons to learn.
purposeful. I think it's purposeful. I think people like Jeff Weaver, like you're saying, like that. I call them the WCCC
Yeah.
because it's like they're white collar campaign carnies. These are people that go from campaign to campaign and they make money, win or lose. It doesn't matter to them if they win or lose. They don't give a crap because they're getting paid. Kamala Harris's campaign spent over $500 million just on staffing.
Mhm.
Okay, and her campaign was like 100 and something days, 109 days or whatever it is. So every single person who got part of that 500 plus $1 million can seriously think about how much money just a handful of people made out of that just to do consulting on her campaign.
She could have
And
And
they
raised
didn't
an
care.
army
Well,
to take
Cornell West
Greenland.
made that mistake as well. Cornell West also made that mistake to have some internal guy that started to eat the campaign from inside. I think that's what you're saying, Jen. I really think that that happens on purpose.
well, we
Oh,
love Dr. West.
absolutely. We had it happen to us. I had a campaign manager on the last campaign before we ended up with who we worked with at the end. Um, and she ended up costing us $100,000 and then violated her non-disclosure and started talking shit about us and all this ridiculous stuff, like just a complete grifter. And this is something that's just unfortunately very common on the left. And there is also, and Peter and I have dealt with this, a lot of mental instability in people in left spaces. It
Extremely,
is. It's very
extremely.
unfortunate. I mean, I'm talking like not just set in snowflake, but ultra snowflake. Like these are not well people in a lot of these spaces. It's true.
And this
And
is
and
also,
it's
yeah,
hard.
and this is also why we have a good friend who we don't speak with as much anymore, but she's moved to different parts of the country, different parts of the world. She's trans, and we've talked in private about how the trans movement they're fucking nut jobs, and you end up hurting your own cause because you cede ground politically to people who shouldn't have it, and they end up hurting people that desperately need to be protected. And this is again, in my opinion, and I agree with Jen, there are a lot of saboteurs in left politics. That's on
Yeah,
purpose. The
that is.
infiltration is purposeful. And I think a lot of these organizations, like the Center for American Progress, like SKD Knickerbocker, I think they all end up getting hired on purpose because, again, the intention is never to allow a populist left uprising to ever take shape and root in the country. Came very close in 2016, but Bernie blinked and decided not to be a revolutionary, even though he kept talking about we need a political revolution in America. And then when the opportunity presented itself for him to be a real revolutionary at the convention, well, we have to support Hillary Clinton because she's actually worse than Donald Trump. And I still maintain she's worse than Donald Trump
I still do.
because
She's still
because she's a stable genius. Trump says he's a stable genius. She's a real stable genius. She would have been able to figure out a way to get us into war with China and make it look
we
like
would
we
have
were the
already
good
been at
guys.
war with Iran. We would
Yeah,
have been at war with
100%.
Iran within her first 100 days.
Yeah,
Without a doubt. I don't yeah.
Trump has done more than any president I can think of to destroy the U.S. empire. So those leftists, friends of mine from outside of the U.S., because I couldn't find any in the U.S. that were saying, kind of hope Trump wins, because who do you want at the head of the
He
empire? The biggest fucking boob
yes.
possible.
Listen,
Well,
you totally don't.
he
Excuse
represents
me.
us.
Excuse me. You don't know what you're talking about. I was the smartest person at Wharton School of Business. You could ask my father. He got me in there. Believe me when I tell you, I am a really smart guy, and I may be losing it a little bit now, but I haven't lost it yet. Believe me. And
I
that's
think that I mean he to me is actually the best representative of American empire.
yes,
I
yeah.
can't think of somebody who would better represent what we are,
The true
how the
face, the
world
true
Yep.
sees
face.
us. I think he's perfect for that. And I said it all the way from back in 2016 with him. It's he facilitates the revolution. That level of because this has to happen. Our system has to crumble. It's inevitable. It has to happen. It's like a band-aid. I'm one of those just rip it off kind of people. He facilitates it. So if, like, let's say Kamala won, right? I compare it like we'd be on a downward escalator versus a free fall, right? But we're ending up in the bottom anyway, one way or another. I kind of would rather get it over with and sort of start rebuilding something in some capacity. But he's the most honest liar we've ever had. I think I find it, yeah, if I find it entertaining, quite honestly. It's absurd. It's absurd. Sometimes I look for cameras. Like, is this real? Are we in the Truman Show? Like, is this really happening? Like, this is so ridiculous. But yeah, let's rip that band-aid off. Let's go. Because this guy, he's running it straight into the ground. And I
Yeah.
I am here for it. I am here for China to take over. I am here for that. China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela, Brazil, all of you. Have at it. Go to town. I'm good.
And I also
We don't
said
need to
that,
be in charge.
and I also said when he won back in 2016 that politics will never be the same again. Like this was a changing of the guard, which inevitably is leading to what we're going through now. And there's no question that the pandemic is the only reason. And again, Biden didn't win; Trump lost. That
Right.
was his election, and he was
This for
1,000.
after the first term.
People tend to forget they screwed Bernie twice. Did they really think that they were going to win that election, knowing everything that had gone down? Under normal circumstances, Trump would have won an even bigger electoral landslide than he won the first time. And so it's
And
just,
this would all be happening sooner.
yeah,
That's all.
that's
It'd have been
correct. That's exactly, that's the point. Because what are the Democrats planning on right now? What are they planning on? They're doing exactly what they've
Newsom.
been planning on doing for the past 25 years. Gavin Newsom has been running for the presidency of the United States ever since the first time I saw him on Real Time with Bill Maher, when Bill Maher actually had a show that made any sense back in 2003, 2004. So he's been running for president ever since then. Mayor of San Francisco, governor of California. And you know that if he had the opportunity to get in the race in 24 just to get it started, he would have absolutely run if they had promised to give him the money. They didn't promise to give him the money. They had to give Kamala the money. But he's coming, and he's going to get Kamala's money this time. And so any
And the same
intention,
WCCC
1,000%. Oh, he's
people
the WCCC candidate. Look at him. He's adorable, and he's going to pick
they'll
Gretchen
make just as
Whitmer.
much money, right? Maybe they'll spend $1.5 more billion and they'll still lose.
Yeah. Listen, it's going to be him, and it's going to be Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. That's going to be the ticket, the lady with the crazy eyes, but she'll be
Good
the
luck
one.
to you with that.
She'll be
Good luck.
waiting in the
She is the
wings.
Democratic Sarah Palin. She is
If
a
you're going to
black
have if you're going to have a California politician at the head of your ticket, you have to have a juxtaposition. So pick a woman who's a governor who's in a swing state. So that to
She's
me,
got the crazy eyes, guys. I don't
yeah,
know. Do you guys know what the crazy eyes are? Because it's a woman thing,
Yeah.
okay? Like, and women can tell other women with the crazy eyes. And I am telling you, Gretchen Whitmer has the crazy
Well,
eyes.
then you will probably agree that Erica Kirk has the crazy eyes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Her
yeah.
and
Hey
Christy
guys,
Nome. Yes.
No, Christine
guys,
Holm,
you have been very generous with your time. I have to
Thank
wrap it up
you.
now because I have to go somewhere.
and the last thing,
I
and the last thing before we go, I do want to point this out because you brought up something very important earlier, and I want to make a point about that since you just brought up Erica Kirk. The reason why I talk about certain people in the content creator space, particularly Fuentes, is because I can see what he's doing. I can see where his movement's going and what he's trying to do with it. You can see, as you were alluding to, Peter, earlier, how at some point they're going to have to make a decision. Are we heading in a socialist direction? Or are we heading in a fascist direction? And somebody like Fuentes is all the more ready, willing, and able to take us in a fascist direction. And the people who follow him, they're devoted to him. Like it's a serious following. And there's a number of them that have found their way to our channel that actually agree with how I'm breaking it down when it comes to
Yeah,
him.
I'd rather not have some of those people on our channel.
But I
You've
think it's
accumulated some freaks because of this
But
shit.
I think it is imperative that we do address it, because if we don't address it, who the hell else is going to? Because the only way they want to address it is either to agree with him or to attack him. I'm trying to show people that the way you actually deal with people like this is expose them for the hypocrites that they are.
Static crackles, voices rise. Truth breaks through their velvet lies. A screen of fire, a shield of steel. Bedbeat medium makes you feel. No borders, no change. No silence, breathe.